I don't want Satoshi to be sad. I feel pity for Sadako in her harsh circumstances. I'm still struggling with how much I have to sacrifice for the sake of research.
Irie?
Sorry, what is it, Rika?
One of my friends has been in the clinic for a long time. Do you think she has Hinamizawa syndrome?
Who told you that?
No one. I just thought about it. So what do you think, Irie? Does Sadako have Hinamizawa syndrome?
Rika's on our side. There's nothing I have to hide from her. Actually, I probably shouldn't keep anything from her. Yes, the problems with her parents and then their sudden deaths. It was all too much for her to bear. Maybe that's what triggered it.
What did the test results say?
Level 5. She seems perfectly fine on the surface, but her emotions are extremely unstable. Since the other day, she's even been refusing to meet with Satoshi.
Satoshi told me. He's worried that it's taking a very long time for Sadako to get better. Irie, what will happen to Sadako?
Sadako is Rika's best friend. How can I tell we're planning to dissect Sadako? However, even if I don't say anything, she already knows that Sadako's situation is extremely poor.
Didn't you find out a lot of things when you examined me?
Sure, of course. We're even testing the medicines we might be able to control the symptoms.
Can't you give that medicine to Sadako?
I thought about it, but it's too dangerous. We're still in the trial stages and trying to gather more data. We can't use it on someone who's in a delicate situation like Sadako.
Then, if you won't try that medicine, what will happen to Sadako?
She spoke as if aware of our plans for Sadako. No, she must actually know. I told her about most of my research. She's more mature than she looks, so it'd be easy for her to figure it out.
If there's even a 1% chance of saving Sadako getting better, then we should take that chance.
It's extremely risky. Worst case, she could immediately display terminal symptoms and hallucinate, or potentially lose her consciousness and spend the rest of her life just staring blankly at a wall. Either of those would be too cruel of a fate for her.
So are you saying it's better to let her die in her sleep? Irie, just like Takano says, there's no guarantees in medicine. But if we don't do anything, Sadako will die for sure. I think it's clear what we should do.
That's true. You're right. But I know too well. C103, the medicine that's being tested, may not even be something that can be used. It might not even have a 1% chance of success. Worse, I can't even imagine what kind of tragic end she'd meet if her body rejects the medicine. That's why I'm tempted to believe it would be far more merciful to feed her favorite food and let her gently fall asleep, and after that, dissect her while she dreams. I don't want to admit it, but Takano's right. I'm being indecisive and showing a lack of resolve. How effective can the medicine made by someone like that really be? So because it was medicine I created myself, I couldn't even believe there might be a 0.1% chance of success.
I think we can believe in it.
She spoke as if she read my mind. Surprised, I raised my head up to look at her, and found her giving me a reassuring look I would never imagine someone of her age capable of.
People's lives depends on your job. It's almost absurd that a human being can control life and death like that. I can't even imagine the pressure.
Her voice hasn't changed, but I feel like Rika is admonishing me, almost as if she knows what it's like to be responsible for human lives.
Guilt and regret are a part of that. That's why you can't use the medicine on Sadako, isn't that right?
Takano said the same thing when she criticized me earlier. I'm being criticized again.
But that's why I can trust you with Sadako.
What?
Human lives are precious. You understand that very well, and that's why you do what you do. Without knowing that, how could you heal people? Do you think I trust medicine created by Takano, who thinks humans are just her guinea pigs?
I shouldn't have even laughed, but I couldn't help it. I felt like I should laugh.
If both you and Takano each produce different medicine, I think yours would be the one to cure her. Because your medicine came from your heart. Your will to heal people is what cures them.
You're absolutely right. I can't believe you're admonishing me about medicine.
I let you use my body for Sadako. Everything you took out from me is for her. If you created that medicine with the knowledge of how precious human lives are, then of course it'll work on Sadako.
Do shrine maidens take confessions? If they do, she's doing a great job at being a shrine maiden at this age. This'll be a gamble. The question is whether Sadako will accept it.
We don't need to tell her. Learning of the Hinamizawa syndrome will only dredge up the deep scar on her heart again.
What does she mean by those words? When I realized it later, I was surprised by how thoughtful and perceptive she was.
Let's stop the plans for dissection.
Oh wait, oops, I messed up. Stop the plans for his dissection. We're going to give Hojo Sadako C103. I'll do my best to increase the chance by even 1%.
Don't worry, Irie. It'll work.
You shouldn't be so optimistic.
I know it'll work. It's already been decided.
That's a very reassuring prophecy from the Furude Shrine's Shrine Maiden.
You can do it! Yeah!
No. Oh, thank God I realized that. C103's implementation on Sadako is going well so far. It wouldn't make any difference to me if the experiment failed. However, Irie's extraordinary focused attention to the experiment has avoided Sadako Hojo hallucinating or turning into a vegetable during the experiment. And surprisingly, we see prospects of her returning to normal life despite reaching level 5. C103 still has many issues, but the experiment proved that even a person who's reached level 5 can be cured. I didn't believe in it at first, but I guess I have to acknowledge Irie's hard work. Only Irie could have done this. He was tormented by naive humanism and didn't want to make mistakes, and that's why he felt obligated to cure Hojo Sadako. The reason why I dislike Irie isn't because of his achievements or abilities, but because of that weakness. But this time I had to praise him for it. I saw your report. I must tip my hat to you. Okay. No, I only did my job as a researcher. If that means fulfilling my duty as a doctor, then nothing would please me more. It's hardly an exaggeration to say that Sadako is now our most valuable specimen. After all, she's the first human to reach level 5 and live. That's true. We'll let her go back to her life and keep our eyes on her. I'm going to tell her to come here every Sunday for a checkup. But how are you going to explain to her that she has to give herself a C103 shot every 3 times a day, and also that she has to come here every Sunday? She has no subjective symptoms. I'm still trying to come up with a good excuse. I think I'll tell her I want her to come and help me with my research. She has to give her shots daily and to come here every Sunday for a checkup. I'll pay her for helping me, or something like that. I guess Irie is determined to help cure Hojo Sadako no matter what. He seems determined to keep her off her dissection table. He and I are in different positions, but I don't have any complaints about his naive ideals, so as long as they translate directly into the passion for our research. If his plans could be put into effect and produce a different result than the dissection would, they'd still be useful to the overall understanding of the Hinamizawa syndrome. I have nothing against Hojo Sadako. It's only that I see her as a research specimen. If she can be useful in that capacity without being dissected, that's perfectly fine with me. We have to get permission from her guardian to give her shots 3 times a day. After her parents died, her aunt and uncle have been taking care of her, right? Maybe I'll go talk to them. I hope they agree to her involvement in such suspicious research. Oh, don't worry. I'm sure they'll be happy to once they realize they'll receive 100,000 to 200,000 yen every month for it. Oh, do we have any money? Sure, as long as we can produce documents to convince Jiro. Okay, sure, I'll work on that. Also, we need to take action to prevent stressing Sadako. We don't want her to return to level 5. I know I messed up. Okay. I hear her aunt and uncle are very mercenary. Perhaps we can handle them with cash. I plan to provide help with their guidance, too. I've heard Sadako isn't getting along with her aunt and uncle. I never thought that'd affect us in any way, but now Irie has to deal with them. Maybe he's developed some kind of sense of responsibility or duty as her guardian. I don't really care. The more responsibility he feels, the more progress our research makes. That'll be a plus for me. By the way, I saw the report on H170. Oh. Compared to your success, it's nothing, but I guess it's some sort of accomplishment. It's honestly ironic. The same research that has produced a remedy to save her from derangement has developed a dangerous drug that could instantly induce it. Erie wasn't involved in the H170 research. That was my work. In fact, I even asked him. He wouldn't have agreed to be involved. This dangerous reagent was developed during the process of uncovering the mechanisms behind how the pathogens controlling Hojo Sadako's brain can induce derangement or paranoia in their host. To put it bluntly, injecting H170 into a patient with Hinamizawa syndrome forced them to express several symptoms. It threw the brain into a similar state of agitation, intentionally forcing the pathogen to grow unstable. If we continue researching this, it would be possible to drive anyone in Hinamizawa syndrome violently insane at the same time. Studying the mechanism behind it will help solve the syndrome's mysteries. So this study on H170 will be extremely important to future research. Also, this medicine has military applications as the client requested. At this point, there's absolutely no use for it. But once our research progresses a bit further, this H170 could be spread at a right moment to cause a certain type of reaction. Compared to a killer virus, it seems like a useless pathogen, but there's no way to detect it in a dead body. And it makes as though the dead person went insane spontaneously, so it must have some useful applications. The Marco Polo Bridge incident threatened to end research on Hinamizawa syndrome before. A historically important incident like this couldn't have been created by a killer virus. What's possible with Hinamizawa syndrome? The elders of the Alphabet Project, the sponsor for our research, can think whatever they want for that. I don't care how they use what I've learned. My purpose is to solve the mysteries of Hinamizawa syndrome and make people realize how important this research is. Also to make people acknowledge my grandfather's accomplishments and achievements. Any military application was just a byproduct of the process that I didn't care about. The clients will appreciate your accomplishment. Maybe our budget will increase for next term. Passion alone can't keep research going. We need money. We must thank the sponsor for giving us so much funding. This much money to come from public expenses. Maybe Japan is richer than I thought. They're public expenses, but they're expenses that can't be made public. Iria has no idea what I had to go through to get that money. Anyway, our research is going extremely well. We don't know what we'll find about Hinamizawa syndrome, but I'm sure every mystery will be eventually solved. I can hardly wait. What the syndrome indicates is that humans are simply empty containers, and what we believe to be our will is simply the actions of parasites that live in our brains. If that mystery was solved, it'd be a greater impact than anything else in history. That's the truth which nobody wants to believe. This is an achievement that my grandfather predicted back during his time. Ah, I know now. I know why the reason my grandfather was so fascinated by his work. Okay. Well, Takano. Medicine C103. This experimental medicine suppresses the production of a certain type of hormone, and in the end it'll stop the transmission of the syndrome triggering Sadako's condition. The mechanism of Hinamizawa syndrome is as follows. The pathogen takes over the frontal lobe of the patient's brain and induces increased responsiveness to paranoia. As a result, a patient voluntarily carries out excessive defensive behaviors to a problematic extent. If this induction can be cut off, it'll be possible to save terminal patients from becoming deranged. But it only cuts off an induction, so it's not really a cure. Ironically, the brain is an organ that learns. Once the brain has learned to be excessively paranoid due to Hinamizawa syndrome, even after the pathogen is eliminated, the brain doesn't simply unlearn that paranoia. In short, even if the pathogen doesn't induce derangement, the patient will be directed to such emotions of their own volition. Thus, it is impossible to completely escape the nearly deranged level 5 state. The pervert a burnt child dreads the fire is a good example of this. Even after the burn on your tongue heals, the fear of being burned again by food remains. When it begins up being a good thing, we call it learning a lesson, and when we call it trauma when it doesn't. We predict Sadako's treatment will take a significantly long time, requiring both medication, such as administering psychotropics and mental care like counseling. We'll have to slowly unravel her mind's solidified paranoia while also suppressing the syndrome's induction of derangement. This is the treatment plan for terminal patients like Sadako. However, as we're going to stimulate parts of her brain that affect her emotions, while they are being stimulated by the pathogen at the same time, it's possible there could be unexpected side effects. Both her mental and physical strength hold the key to our success. We're going to begin the experiment once she regains her emotional stability and physical strength, but someone who threatens to disturb her emotional stability has been coming here every day. Oishi, the sly old detective from Okinawa Police Department. He thinks everything from the dam process to the dismemberment murder of the construction manager is the organized effort secretly conducted by the 3 families of the village. He even thinks the accident involving Sadako's parents wasn't an accident. That's why he keeps coming back so he can talk to Sadako. No matter how many times you come, I won't let you see her. She's still crippled by the shock of her parents' death. Can't you understand what she's been going through? I understand. I only need a few minutes with her, really. It won't take long at all. If you want me to get a warrant, I will. But it's pretty serious, you know. I'm being considerate of Hojo, and that's why I haven't gotten a warrant. What are you trying to ask her anyway? I don't really understand. Well, actually, it's possible the fall was not an accident. I know the Hojo couple were hated by the whole village after the incident with the dam, but who would actually follow them on their trick and push them off? Don't you think that's absurd? Well, we could call it an accident, but if that was the case, there are some things that just don't make sense. Why lie? With those lies, I don't think it was an accident. What lies? Well, Hojo Sadako said she was asleep in the car at the time of the accident. I think that story sounds a little off, doesn't it? Sadako claims that she was asleep in the back seat when the accident took place, so she didn't get out of the car at the viewing platform. When she woke up, she didn't see her parents, and she found out they'd fallen off the cliff. Where's the lie exactly? You aren't saying that Sadako wasn't really asleep and she went over to the viewing platform with her parents, are you? That's right. Hojo Sadako was never asleep. She got out of the car with her parents and went to the viewing platform. I'm suddenly hit by a terrible possibility. If what Oishi says is true, Sadako is saying she didn't go to the viewing platform even though she actually did. It's terrible to even imagine. Why are you saying such a thing? Besides, why would Sadako lie? That's just it. Why would Hojo Sadako lie? That's why I need to talk to her. Otherwise, this won't end as just a simple accident. Why are you convinced that Sadako is lying? This accident took place in a different jurisdiction. The guys from the Shirakawa station conducted the interviews with the parties involved. There are things that bother me in their report. Bother you? Like what? According to Hojo Sadako's statement, her parents asked her to come with them to the viewing platform, but she was sleepy, so she didn't get out of the car. Then she fell asleep and woke up after a while. She became concerned because her parents hadn't come back and started to cry. One of the park workers in the patrol noticed her crying and talked to her. That's how the accident was discovered. And at that time, guess what? According to the park's worker's testimony, she was the one who first said her parents had fallen off the cliff. But you see, it's hard to see the accident set in question for where the car was parked. If you look very carefully, you might notice the broken fence. But still, you know, I think it's odd to say that your parents had fallen off a cliff because you didn't see them when you woke up. Normally, most people would say something like their parents went for a walk and didn't come back. It just doesn't make any sense to me that she told a stranger her parents had fallen off a cliff without even looking at the site of the accident. I want to ask her why she's so certain her parents had fallen off a cliff, and that's why I keep coming back here. I asked her many times before she was admitted here, but all she said that she doesn't remember. She sounds confused at the time. Sounds like a politician, huh? That's why I think it's worth taking that time to talk to her. That terrifying possibility has turned to certainty in my head. I assumed her parents' accident triggered her terminal symptoms, but no. Sadako had already gone terminal, and just before the accident, her heart was filled with paranoia that drove her mad. She was under a lot of stress because of her bad relationship with her stepfather. She was also being scolded by her mother for not being able to get along with him. And that made her paranoid and made her think that her parents considered to be a bother and were going to kill her. Then they went to the viewing platform. She must have thought they were going to push her off the cliff. And a tragedy took place. She pushed her parents off instead, although she considered it to have been self-defense. I'm certain of that, because I know Hinamizawa syndrome better than anybody. This accident isn't an accident. It isn't a crime either, like Oishi is thinking. It is simply a tragedy. When I talked to Satoshi about the family, I was even more convinced. He told me even though Sadako refused to open up to her stepfather, he had tried to communicate with her. It's true the relationship didn't go well in the beginning. Sadako caused trouble repeatedly and even called the child abuse hotline. At that point, they received guidance from the Child Consolation Center, and they pointed out the problem lay in the lack of communication between her father and stepfather. So the stepfather took a parenting course under the social worker's guidance, and as awkward as it was, he made efforts to communicate with her. Satoshi noticed this effort, so he tried to talk to Sadako about it. but Sadako didn't notice them at all. The excessive stress she was under triggered terminal symptoms, and she couldn't understand her stepfather's remorse. On the contrary, her stepfather's change created even more mistrust within her. As a result, they went to enjoy the beautiful view of the Shirakawa Nature Park as a family and sharing that joy, yet that humble, ordinary family's wish couldn't even get to Sadako. What a tragic misunderstanding. Sadako stayed in that car telling her parents that she wanted to sleep, but then she got out and snuck up behind him. I bet he heard her footsteps. He pretended not to notice her, thinking that she was doing that to surprise him. It's sad just to think about what must have ran through his mind. While he thought he'd finally gotten through to her, she actually approached him with the intent to kill. But that's not Sadako's true nature. It's a disease. Sadako isn't the only one who to be pitied. Her parents are its victims too. And now Oishi thinks she's a criminal. Judgment and punishment are required for crimes with malicious intent. But what she really needs is understanding and sympathy. And no one has that understanding except for me because I know about the Hinamizawa syndrome. I'm the director of the Erie Institute, but I've never behaved as such or exercised that authority. But I'm going to do so for the first time since taking that position. I'm not doing it as the head of the Erie Institute, the secret research organization. I'm doing it as a doctor so I can protect Sadako. It's about the Hojo family's accident at the Shirakawa Nature Park. Do you think you can ask Okanogi from the Mountain Dogs to make it out to be an accident? Sure, of course, that's no problem. The Mountain Dogs are a unit specialized in concealment and manipulation after all. We'll have to put an end to it quickly, otherwise the police will end up getting closer to finding about our research. That's right. Please make especially sure that Oishi is drawn away from this case. We're at a delicate stage of the drug administration test. She doesn't need any more unnecessary stress. You're absolutely right. I'll let the Mountain Dogs know. I heard they even have connections within the police, so I'll give them the order to put pressure on them too. I'm sure the accident in Shirakawa Park will be concluded as exactly as that within a few days. With that, it was declared an accident. Only if it really was one, it would have eased Sadako's soul. Getting rid of the pathogen can't heal that wounded soul, nor can it erase the tragedy that's already taken place. All I can do is my best, so the day she regains her smile comes sooner. Alright, we can start this one. Rika's developed a high fever. A very high fever. It's not flu season nor a season for any type of contagious disease. I could only think of the suspicious experiments Rika has gone through. Maybe the fever is being caused by those. Her growth is rather slow compared to other children her age. Receiving mysterious shots and going through experiments every week, I'm sure her body's exhausted. I've asked the staff to go easy on her, but Rika herself is fearless and is willing to go through anything. My husband, who should be admonishing her for that, truly believes their stories, that it's crucial for the lives of over 2,000 villagers, and takes our own daughter to that clinic every week. I'm the only one who's sincerely worried about her health. That's why I want to ask Dr. Erie to be a little more considerate toward Rika. Anyway, I have to talk to them about taking responsibility for this. Right after I called, a staff member came by to pick up Rika to admit her to the clinic. As her guardian, I came with them. Please calm down. We'll make sure she's okay, so please wait for a while. How can I calm down? Why did she come down with such a high fever? Isn't this caused by the experiment you performed last week? Rika's just a little girl, you know. She cares about her friends, so she's doing what she can for the sick girl. I understand. There's no way our research would affect Rika negatively. Besides, we're being extremely careful that something like that won't happen. Then explain this high fever! It's probably due to the change in seasons and... How could this be a simple cold? This is because of that weird shot you gave her. Dr. Erie only told me to calm down and refused to accept responsibility. My husband told me this is all for the sake of the village, and that's why I've held back my doubts until now. But now I'm at my limit. Their existence has been suspicious from the beginning. They're conducting their research in secret using a private policy as an excuse. That was shady enough on its own. It's just impossible. In fact, I called the Ministry of Health and was told that wasn't true at all, even after I told them I'm Rika's mother. The clinic came up with such stupid excuses saying that normal workers often don't know of special institutes like theirs. That doesn't make sense at all. It's much, much too suspicious. Also, there are people who don't appear to be researchers working at the institute. They look like security guards, but they seem so different from normal guards at the normal hospital. In fact, one time I accidentally saw that they were armed with guns. That is, well, are they policemen? I don't think so. Who are you all anyway? I refuse to believe you're from the Ministry of Health. Dr. Irie seems to be taking back my intensity and can't even answer properly. They're still hiding a lot more from us. That tells me the research they're working on with Rika isn't anything proper. Anyway, I'm Rika's guardian. Rika's still a child, and it doesn't matter what she says. I won't let her participate in this research anymore. My. It's Rika's mother. Hello. Oh, what's the matter? Is everything okay? Well, Rika's mother says she won't let Rika participate in the research any longer. Why is that? Because she's not your guinea pig! We've never treated her that way. You're misunderstanding us. I'm a little startled. Dr. Irie is a weak person who backs down under pressure. Takano is different. I'm yelling at her, but she's not afraid at all. On the contrary, she's glaring daggers and looks as if she's about to jump on me. Rika's fever is caused by a cold. We didn't cause it. When it comes to safety and sanitation, we pay the same level of attention as a National Research Center. I don't mean to be rude, but considering you walk around while holding Rika's hands without disinfecting yours with alcohol first, we are far more sanitary. We're not talking about that! Anyhow, Rika isn't your toy. She'll never come back here again. You can't decide that yourself. You and your husband both signed the statement of consent, didn't you? We've been depositing money that's by no means a small amount into your account every single month for her cooperation in the research. What? I knew nothing about any money! I've never even heard of that before! Rika receiving money for participating in the research is really news to me. Knowing my husband's character, he wouldn't have used it as spending money behind my back. I bet he thought of it as a free service for the villagers and completely forgot about the money being deposited into our account. There haven't been any strange deposits in the regular account, so it must be in their savings. Anyway, I don't care about that. If you want to breach your contract, we'll have to ask you to return the full amount of deposits that you've made up until this point. Also, if one party is at fault for the breach of contract. Takano, please calm down. Mrs. Furude, you too. Just as I explained to you before, we must find a cure for Hinamizawa syndrome so the villagers can continue to live without their worries. For that reason, we need to have Rika continue to participate. Then tell me when are you going to find a cure? It doesn't make sense. At first you said this is for Rika's friend Sadako, but Sadako's been released from the clinic and is now carrying on happily. You even told my husband 2 weeks ago you found a cure already, didn't you? Yes, I think I told him something like that, but you see, to solve the mysteries of the syndrome... You didn't mention anything about solving mysteries at the beginning! Rika was to participate and find a cure for the villagers, so now her job is done! All the research and experiments you've been performing on Rika have nothing to do with the cure. You're doing it out of your own self-interest, aren't I right? That's not true. It really isn't. Anyway, this matter of Rika's cold is just a misunderstanding. If you still don't trust us, then... That's enough! Since money's involved here, I'll have to discuss it with my husband. Excuse me! They were just too shady from the very start. Because of their exaggerated story, Rika and my husband took their side. But it won't work on me. Anyhow, I must settle things with them right away. Because Rika isn't their toy. I especially don't trust that woman called Takano. Dr. Irie seems to be like he's still a doctor, but she doesn't. How can I describe her? I guess I can say the glow in her eyes is just unpleasant. She only sees Rika as a guinea pig. I just feel cruelty emitting from her. Neither my husband nor Rika have noticed that. I must protect her. As a mother, I must protect Rika. That's not like you, Takano. Getting into an argument with her will only make things more complicated. It's so unlike you. I know. Sorry for losing my cool. Something happened to put her in a bad mood, Irie wondered? The heated conversation she just had didn't involve the Takano he knew. pictures for a stroll. She might have discovered the joy of cameras, and I'm happy to gain a friend who shares the same hobby. However, there's actually something else she's much more interested in, and that would be the history of Hinamizawa. She frequently visited libraries and local archives to read through the various documents and books. When it came to Hinamizawa, she's gained quite an extensive knowledge of the local history. When she's in a good mood, she tells me about things like how Hinamizawa used to be called Onigafuchi Village and how the villagers used to perform various cruel ceremonies based around the worship of Oyashiro. It seems she loved tales of violence, and that actually gave her kind of a mysterious charm. On the other hand, I don't do well with grotesque things, so I can hardly say anything in response. The stories of cruel ceremonies that she gets excited about, I don't really get them all that well. However, with the way her lies lay out when she talks, I don't mind spending time with her even after I hear about cruel things. You should like looking into that stuff, don't you? Sure, it's fun. It's thrilling to unravel a dark past has been sealed away. Don't you think so? Takano smiled in a way that almost made it sound like a dark past is something fun, but of course it isn't. The dark history of Hinamizawa that she loves is something cruel and atrocious, like the witch hunts of the Middle Ages. Besides, they help in researching Hinamizawa syndrome. You don't always have to look through microscopes to research things. Sometimes the traditions of this village that have spent so long with a parasite can teach us things that are far more valuable. That's true. Boy, you sure are passionate about this. That's because research gives my life meaning. To step into the unknown and uncover a secret that nobody else knows. Don't you think that's wonderful? It tickles my intellectual curiosity. That's probably the greatest entertainment available to humans, who can feel joy just from thinking. The first person to work on this, Dr. Takano, must have discovered something fascinating enough to make him devote his entire life to researching this syndrome too. I think I'm probably the only one who understands his feelings. I suppose it would be too difficult for you, Jiro, since you're not a researcher. She's always seemed so enthusiastic every time she talks about the late Dr. Takano, an independent researcher who was the first person to discover the existence of the syndrome. There has to be more than something than just her admiration as a researcher. Come to think of it, Dr. Takano's full name was Takano Hifumi. Takano's full name is Takano Mio. Not only are their last names pronounced the same, but their first names also follow a similar pattern. They must be connected somehow. I don't know anything about Takano's personal history, but there's a good chance that her name is an alias. So it's very possible she chose a name to reflect the researcher she admires. I see. So is that why you chose that name? What? Well, the name of the researcher you look up to is Takano Hifumi, right? And your name is Mio. In Japanese, it's like you're counting upwards. You're continuing the research you wasn't able to complete, so I thought that's why you have that name. Who told you that? No. I just thought of that just now. I didn't hear it from anybody. You're correct. I'm surprised you figured it out since you're so dense. I know you admire Dr. Takano, and sometimes you've spoken as if you were his daughter or granddaughter who inherited his research legitimately. That's why I said that. Even authors use their pen names as homages or authors that they admired as well, so I thought the name that you use is like your pen name, you know? No, that's not so. Takano Mio is my real name. You write my family name differently, though. Then it really is the exact same name as Dr. Takano? That's even more of a surprise, and Mio is your real name, too. Takano Mio continued Takano Hifumi's life's work. What a fateful coincidence! You're overstaying it, Jiro. This isn't fate of any kind. He's my grandfather. What?! This is news to me. I heard Takano discovered documents about the Hinamizawa syndrome left by Dr. Takano after his death and decided to continue his research. I never heard of them being related before. Somebody told me it'd leave a bad impression if I asked for money to continue my grandfather's research, so that people may think I'm trying to pull funds for a family matter. That's why I changed one of my characters in my last name, so the other than Uncle Koizumi. You're the first person I've ever told this to. I see. I didn't know. So that's why you're so passionate about all this. I understand very clearly now. She really did inherit the work of her grandfather that he was unable to complete. I messed up. My grandfather researched the Hinamizawa syndrome not only from a medical point of view, but through old documents and literature as well. Looking through the old stories of the village that has been living within the syndrome for hundreds of years can be far more valuable than looking through microscopes that magnify things hundreds of times. My grandfather taught me that. I see. I'm sure your grandfather's happy that you're finishing the work he couldn't. I bet he's really proud of you. I hope so. I said something Takano would normally tease me about, but she didn't. She nodded and smiled. There's no mistake. She is indeed the granddaughter of Dr. Takano. I messed up. Messed up. Why do I keep messing up? My grandfather is Hifumi, which means 1, 2, 3. And I'm Mio, which means 3, 4. Following after my grandfather, we've only counted the 3 together. I counted 4 after my grandfather. We must reach that 5 neither me nor my grandfather have seen yet. That's my duty and the reason I was born. So that's why your name is Mio, huh? I think that's a beautiful name. Thank you. But please keep the granddaughter issue to yourself. My clans don't even know, and I don't want any unnecessary problems for them finding out about it. Sure, okay. This is a secret between you and me, huh? Although it's only a small secret, it feels good to think that I'm the only one who knows about it. I've only counted to 3. I haven't even reached 4 yet. The path before me is long and rough, but I will do it. I'll expose the secrets of Hinamizawa syndrome. I'll support you. That's my job in the first place, isn't it? Jeez. You sound pretty cool if you didn't tack on things like that. You only need to say that you'll support me, you know. Okay, I'll support you. It's too late. You're not cool if you can't get it right the first time. We laughed cheerfully together. After we finished laughing, she became serious again and spoke as if to drive the point home. So remember, Jiro. Don't tell anybody that I'm his granddaughter, okay? Okay, I promise. It's not a bad thing, but I don't want the clients to cut our funding because of that. I don't think they will. Besides, I won't tell a soul. Are you sure? Are you really, really sure? This research is the entire purpose of my life. My mission is to complete my grandfather's work, to prove that his trampled research is actually something amazing that will shock the world and make everyone praise my grandfather who's been perishing away under the earth, eventually having him ascend as God. That's the meaning and purpose of my life. Jiro, if you say something that creates problems for my research, don't worry, I'll forget everything you told me here. Really, I mean it. I won't say anything. I promise. I won't say anything. Are you sure, Jiro? I sensed something frightening within her for a moment. Afraid that she'd end up possessed by it, I swore to keep my promise. Her intellectual curiosity as a researcher and a conviction to complete her grandfather's research are what stirs her passion for researching Hinamizawa syndrome. I think there's one more reason, but it's far too deep. And it's within a wound in her heart that someone like me should never touch. But earlier, she said, if you create problems for my research, I wonder what she wanted to say after that. I can't help but thinking she wanted to say something terrifyingly merciless. I kept my promise with her. We never talked about the issue again after that. Suddenly, Uncle Koizumi passed away. I never heard he was ill or wasn't feeling well. His chest started to hurt suddenly. He couldn't sleep. He called an ambulance for the first time in his life because he didn't think he could endure the pain. He was taken into emergency care, but he didn't live to see the morning. It was an acute myocardial infarction, but maybe it was the best possible way to go. Instead of being in bed for many years, slowly dilapidating and withering away, he was healthy until his death, so I think he must have lived a wonderful life. But still, it was too sudden. I wish I had called him Uncle more. It was too late, though. Uncle Koizumi would never smile at me again with his wrinkly old face, no matter how many times I called for him. He was my guardian until now. He always looked after me, making sure my efforts received proper recognition. Maybe he only did that because he couldn't help my grandfather when he was alive. But still, he was an important person to me. He wasn't just my political backing. But I didn't realize that when he was alive. I only thought of using his power for my own agenda. But after he died, I realized Uncle Koizumi was my grandpa too. He provided the warmth and protection I longed for from my own grandfather. At his funeral, I shed tears that I thought I forgot how to. Uncle, thank you for everything. I should have called you Uncle Morha. No matter how many times I called to him, he would never reply. What I can do for him at this point is complete my research. I must accomplish my goal for his sake. When my grandfather's research finally acknowledged, Uncle Koizumi's name would be known once again for being the sole supporter of his endeavor. I believe that's the best way to repay him for everything that he has done. I vowed to devote myself to my work even more from this day on, but unfortunately, hardships and sadness tend to come together. It was like the tailwind that blew steadily until today suddenly became a headwind. The wind shifted far too suddenly, so strong, so cold, so sad. What? What are you talking about, Jiro? Well, you know that Koizumi was the main political sponsor for the Erie Institute, right? He had trouble getting approval from the related agencies, but Koizumi used his political weight to force it through. After all, he was one of the key figures in the post-war restoration, accomplishing tremendous deeds in the medical industry. He held a huge influence in politics and industry, so now that Koizumi is gone, the way he did things won't work any longer. So far, it's only a rumor. I don't know for sure. But I heard they're going to reconsider the budget allocated for the project. Are you saying the Erie Institute would be closed down? No, I haven't heard anything about them reconsidering the institute, but since Koizumi's death, the rumors said that there's a great deal of confusion among the old guard and their factions, as well as the civil strife within the party about finding his successor. It seems the opposing factions are gaining influence in the human resources of our client. They may begin to dig deep into the holy treasure chest that the Koizumi faction held to fund their project. Of course, this is all far too complicated for me to explain it that well. And besides, these might just be rumors. Jiro kept saying that they were rumors, but that told me the wind's direction has changed. Or maybe Jiro already knows everything and is simply trying to warn me about it. And then at our next routine audit, Jiro made it clear with his own mouth. High-ranking government officials who had never come here before attended the routine audit along with Jiro. Just by seeing those faces, I could tell the turning point is approaching. As you know, the Alphabet Project was created to strengthen the post-war Japan's presence in the world within the view of developing deterrent weaponry. However, the 21st century is now just around the corner, and in this day and age, we must put past behind us and start looking forward to the new world. I don't know why I'm messing up, I'm sorry. He meant exactly what he said. Japan has already put its past behind and cutting off its ties with the ghosts that wish to resurrect the military right of the pre-war era. Militaristic, I'm so sorry. Anyway, it's been 40 years since the end of the war, and we contributed to the war in various peaceful ways, and we have a strong alliance with the United States. Our nation has established its position in world affairs well enough. We kept our promise to forever renounce war and nuclear weapons, and we're known as the nation of peace. In this coming century, our presence and influence will grow even larger. The Alphabet Project, the main sponsor of the Erie Institute, are a group of people who want to develop a weapon that could act as a deterrent of the nuclear weapons which Japan is forbidden to own. So they come to the Erie Institute, one of the branch organizations, to tell us Japan has now renounced nuclear arms. So the Erie Institute will be facing a strong cold headwind from now on. The roll of the die that came up on a 1 on that stormy day has reappeared. I won't let the result of the die affect me. The power of my will won't be beaten by some god's roll of the dice. If we're going to restructure the Alphabet Project to one that's more suitable for this day and age. This new Alphabet Project will be tasked with figuring out the best way for this country to achieve a larger presence in the world affairs, not through militaristic means, but through peaceful measures like international trade and economic development. All the people who hold tremendous influence in politics and the economy of Japan were born before the war, so naturally they want to regain the glory of pre-war Japan. The very idea that we could win next time if we research a new bomb that defeated us is itself a specter of the war. No, everyone already realized that. It was just that no one would speak out against the grandstanding elders they owed their gratitude towards. Soon the old will wither away and the new generation will take control. Uncle Koizumi was in a way the last remaining pillar for the old generation. His death is a chance for the new generation to step in. The things they couldn't argue about openly are now being discussed. They pointed out from the beginning the Alphabet Project was created for the personal satisfaction of the small group of people and sucked money out of the treasury, and so the new generation of politicians have taken over from the old. Therefore, everything the Alphabet Project was sponsoring will have to be reviewed. Of course, the Erie Institute is one of those subsidiaries. We hope you'll understand and respond amicably. I understand. We can't do research without our sponsors after all. We'll give you our full cooperation. Erie responded appropriately, but he's obviously bewildered. The best equipment and staff are being provided to the Erie Institute. In other words, our research requires a huge amount of money. For those with no interest in the Hinamizawa syndrome, they probably won't be able to understand why that money is being put into the research of disgusting parasites. They're simply going to revise our budget. That would be fine. We're receiving more than enough money. That would naturally be adjusted. It hurts, but we can endure. That's what I thought. But if just enduring was enough, it wouldn't be a 1 on a die. So even in that sense, this is definitely a roll of a die coming up as 1. Anyway, the new board of directors was inaugurated back in April. They outlined our new policies for all the projects. For more details, please look through the papers I'll be handing out. His papers were then passed around. He started to go over the details, but I read through quickly so I could learn about their stupid decisions first. The Erie Institute has made a great headway in uncovering the mystery of Hinamizawa syndrome, as well as a cure for the disease. The board of directors is extremely pleased. It recognizes this is due to the unceasing efforts of Director Erie and all the staff of the Erie Institute. Thank you. Even while he received their congratulations, a tense atmosphere surrounded me and Erie. It's customary to start the conversation the opposite way you're planning to take it before delving into your main point to convey. If the main issue is something good, it will start with something bad, or vice versa. The Erie Institute had 2 main intentions. One was to study the disease and hopefully find a cure. The other was to research the possibility of utilizing the disease for military applications. The new board of directors has decided to put a stop to the latter immediately. In this day and age, researching biological weapons is the Achilles heel for Japan. The Erie Institution must cease all related research and destroy any results. I understand. I will comply. Erie replied with that immediately. Erie was assertive about finding a cure, but was never even remotely interested in researching the disease for its use of military purposes. So I'm sure he has no qualms about concurring with such demands. But I don't agree, because our research would be more limited if we were just trying to find a cure. To me, finding that cure is simply a byproduct of my larger goal of discovering everything about the Hinamizawa syndrome. Also, regarding the Erie Institution, we decided to have you wrap up your work within the next 3 years. Your budget will decrease gradually as well. Wait, please! We've only recently figured out anything about the syndrome, and there's more we have to learn in order to create a better cure. We're making progress, but I can't guarantee we'll come up with a complete cure within 3 years. It's understanding of the board that the Erie Institute has already completed enough research to develop a cure. The Erie Institute has already completed the C117 vaccine and has a great deal of clinical data. No, it's not even close to being completed. It's still only a prototype, and we're far from being able to see a cure for all the villagers. Debating the end of our research at this stage can only be described as absolutely, positively reckless. I'm surprised that Erie objected. Thanks to him, I didn't have to say anything. But if Erie hadn't objected, I'm sure I would have shrieked in protest. In other words, the Erie Institute is not yet capable of curing all the people who are infected or to fully eradicate the syndrome. Is that correct? Yes, of course, curing all the villagers and eradicating the syndrome will be possible in the future, and that's our ultimate goal, but I need more time, and of course funding to do that. Our job is to investigate and find a practice that works and establish it as a product. This isn't a job where you can follow a blueprint in order to create something with certainty in a set time frame. So we hope you'll avoid following that misconception. I guess Erie speaks out when he needs to, and what he's saying is absolutely right. Research isn't something guaranteed to produce results with money and time. But I disagree with some of the things that he said. He's objecting about the time and money, but he's basically agreeing to limit our research only toward finding a cure to Hinamizawa syndrome. That won't do. We won't unravel any mysteries that way. At that rate, the discovery of the Hinamizawa syndrome won't be recognized as my grandfather's great achievement. I see. I think I see your point. Our main purpose here is to dispose of the fact that this research was conducted for military purposes, so we must forever hide the fact that research was conducted on the strange disease called Hinamizawa syndrome, as well as its existence. If you can eradicate disease without anyone ever learning about it, we'll give you the time and funding you require, but we'll discuss it more about that later. Is that acceptable? Yes, I have no problem with that. Then please submit a plan and a budget proposal for eradicating the syndrome in secrecy. We'll do our best on our part to approve your proposal. Thank you. I'll work on it immediately. Please don't misunderstand that it's our intention to halt the research immediately. We want to see the best possible outcome for your work. Please understand that. Yes, of course, I understand. While I was listening to their conversation, I was struck dumbfounded with something they said. Eradicating the syndrome in secrecy. In other words, it would have been as though Hinamizawa syndrome never existed, so my grandfather's name will never be revered by anyone. The sound of rustling papers and hushed proceedings filled the meeting room. I only heard the ticking clock as I clutched my sweating palms.